Good afternoon. Yeah, almost. Good afternoon. It's relevant because somebody says it's noon someplace, and we're going to be talking about beer and alcohol, so it's noon somewhere, right? First, I want to thank you to the organizers, and especially to my committee and the breakout participants. We had robust discussion, very thoughtful and forward-looking suggestions. And I also want to mention first up that uniformly in the committee we endorse and we want to underscore all of the comments that were made this morning by Neil Steinberg. We couldn't agree more that education is critically important. Main Street, just so you know, as Cap says, it's a catch-all, but Main Street is the place where the community comes together to live, work, play, eat, drink. And the issues that we talk about deal with all the businesses that play into that. We have four issues, or four principal issues that we want to bring forward. And the first has to do with the beer legislation that is currently on the books. And it's about making Rhode Island competitive and eliminating, if you will, barriers to the organic development of the business. At the moment, there's a limit on how much, from a volume perspective, that can be served by craft brewers, and likewise the amount that they can sell. Those limits are based upon, in much, quite frankly, arbitrary and based upon a different industry standard that has nothing to do with craft beer. Craft beer is one of the fastest growing industries, not only in the state, but in the country. And our limits on volume and vessel size makes us anti-competitive, frankly, with our neighboring states. And because people are so into the craft brew industry and craft beer, they're bypassing Rhode Island and going to Massachusetts and Vermont. And so we don't want to do that to our industry. This is a great industry and we want to help them grow, and the suggestion is that we eliminate those limits altogether. Likewise, with respect to the distribution, both of craft brews as well as for our distilleries in this state, they are hindered because they can't self-distribute their product. Now, any of us in business know that to build our brands, to build my brand, if I want somebody to buy my service, I need to go and do that myself. And so too with respect to our distilleries and our beer. We take ownership of building our brand, and once we build our brand, then people are going to want to buy it. We need to be able to self-distribute. And what we know for sure is that there will be no impact, if you will, on the distributors and the big guys out there in terms of their business. It hasn't happened in neighboring states. Again, our neighboring states, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, all of those folks are allowed to self-distribute. They establish their brand. There becomes so much demand. Guess what? The distributors are back. They'll be distributing our beer and distilled victuals throughout the state. And so that's a principal item that we are suggesting and that we discussed in great detail. There's often an expression about having a pebble in your shoe as a business person, and you're trying to do something, a pebble in your shoe, and it just sort of irritates you and you can't move forward. We're experiencing that with respect to what I'll refer to as taxing issues on small businesses, and specifically with respect to three items, and it goes to, in our opinion, not the intent of what the legislature had with our various taxing laws, but rather with varying interpretations by, I presume, well-meaning individuals at revenue. But three examples of this are what I refer to as the post-mortem sales tax. There's a sales tax that funeral homes have to assess on coffins when you purchase them. And then some people choose to be cremated, so they have urns. Well, there isn't a sales tax on urns. And apparently, someone creatively in the tax department decided that urns should be taxed or have a sales tax on them, and has retroactively looked at funeral homes to provide sales tax with respect to urns. Of course, those individuals, I got it 1 minute, okay. Those individuals are either in their urns or their estates have been closed, and therefore the funeral homes have no way to collect those taxes. Likewise, we have an issue with respect to electronic payments. We live in a 24/7 world, and if I hit an electronic payment, I'm going to pay my bill like most people do at 11:59. It should be on time for that day. Well, the tax department has decided that if you don't hit your electronic button send by 4:30, your payment's going to be deemed late as of that day. We believe that this to be sort of creative thinking on the part of our revenue folks, and we'd like to redirect their thinking. We also have three priorities, Mark, with respect to the food. I hear you. We want to look to minimizing food waste and helping our Rhode Island businesses comply with state law. We have state law, and we want to help them do that by providing them with the technical assistance and resources that they need. We're also looking to have folks buy local and for local food procurement in K-12 schools, and also looking to make sure that we really support LASA, the Local Agriculture and Seafood Act grant program. It has the economic data to support it. It creates jobs and has really helped businesses grow. Thank you.